감당할 수 있겠니?
In our headlines on this Monday afternoon, July 31st. 7 people are seen to have lost their lives this past Saturday alone here in South Korea, raising the heat-related death toll to at least 10 amid scorching temperatures that look to persist throughout this week. And a historic heat wave grips the US Southwest this past weekend, while volatile weather patterns in neighboring China raised the mercury to as high as 52 degrees Celsius in one region and launch a savage storm in another. More than 40 people have been killed and nearly 200 injured in a suspected suicide bomb blast targeting a political rally in northwest Pakistan this past Sunday, fanning fresh fears over terrorism amid the country's general election this year. At least 10 people have lost their lives to brutal heat here in Korea this year. Our Shin Hyun covers this unfortunate reality and more.
As the scorching temperatures continue, the number of deaths from heat-related illnesses is rising, particularly among the elderly. Heatwave alerts were issued across most part of the country over the weekend as the high in some areas reached almost 39 degrees Celsius. According to the Ministry of Interior and Safety, at least 7 people died on Saturday and more than 70 people suffered heat stroke. The heat-related death toll has now risen to 10 since May 20th, for more than the same period last year. Those who died were mostly people in their 70s or older and were found dead inside greenhouses or on farms in regions where temperatures shot up to daily highs of between 33 and 36 degrees Celsius. More deaths are expected to be reported as data for Sunday is yet to be released. With the number of casualties on the rise, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety ordered local governments and relevant authorities on Sunday to make efforts to implement measures for 3 vulnerable groups during the extreme heat, including elderly farmers, elderly individuals living alone, and outdoor construction workers. It is scheduled to hold an emergency meeting on Monday with relevant authorities to enhance the heatwave response system to prevent heat-related illnesses. Meanwhile, on Sunday evening, heavy rain reaching up to 80 millimeters per hour poured down on some areas of Seoul, causing a temporary halt to subway and train operations. According to railway operator Korail and Seoul Metro, at 6:50 p.m. on Sunday, the operation of subway line number 1 was halted. Trains including KTX services also experienced disruptions. All trains, including on line number 1, resumed operations at 7:15 p.m. after railway safety was confirmed. With the heavy rain alert lifted nationwide, the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters lifted its response level as of 11:30 p.m. Sunday, which had been issued at level 1. It also lowered the National Disaster Alert level from caution to attention. 신하영, Arirang News.
And it appears that other countries in the Northern Hemisphere, including neighboring China as well as the United States, are also seeking to bear the blistering heat and their callous consequences. Our Jae has the latest.
The intense heat wave globally has impacted countries in a number of ways. Over in the U.S., heat warnings and advisories have been issued throughout the country, affecting a large number of businesses. The state of Texas was particularly hard hit, as the average weekly working hours of workers in small and medium-sized businesses in the tourism, entertainment, and recreation sectors plunged by about 20% from mid-June to mid-July, compared to the same period in 2019 to 2022. Analysts say that if the heat wave continues, Texas will face billions of dollars in economic losses. China has also seen volatile weather this summer. Some parts of China, including the Xinjiang region, has seen some of the most brutal summer heat in recent years, reporting temperatures as high as 52 degrees Celsius. China was also slammed by Typhoon Toksuri over the weekend, bringing heavy rainfall to several regions in northern China, including the capital Beijing. The massive storm has resulted in the evacuation of 400,000 people in the Fujian region, with China's weather authorities issuing a red alert for the first time in 12 years. Meanwhile, wildfires that have lasted now for more than 2 weeks in parts of Greece have impacted the tourism industry there. A total of 667 fires broke out across Greece in the past 10 days, an average of more than 60 fires per day. The wildfires this summer were all the more devastating for the country as they occurred during the peak of their summer vacation season. The island of Rhodes, known for its resorts, has been especially hit hard, with 20,000 vacationers evacuating the island earlier this month due to wildfires. With July 2023 already being recorded as the hottest month in human history by the World Meteorological Organization, and August still around the corner, concerns are high as to how much more damage the intense global heat will cause to people and the economy. 이승재, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, leaders in West Africa have given the junta in Niger 7 days to restore democratic rule and reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum. Our Ian Jin covers the conflict there.
Last Wednesday, Niger's first democratically elected president, Mohamed Bazoum, was deposed by members of the country's military. With the country thrown into chaos, an emergency summit of the 15-nation Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, was held in Nigeria on Sunday. Describing the events as a hostage situation and an interruption to a properly elected government, ECOWAS demanded the immediate release and reinstatement of President Bazoum. The ECOWAS bloc not only suspended ties with Niger, but gave the military junta 1 week to cede power, warning that the use of force had been authorized.
In the event the authorities' demands are not met within 1 week, take all measures necessary to restore constitutional order in the Republic of Niger. Such measures may include the use of force.
ECOWAS and the 8-member West African Economic and Monetary Union have declared the closure of borders with Niger, which includes the banning of commercial flights, halting financial transactions, freezing national assets, and ending aid contributions. The military junta's ousting of the president in Niger marks the Sahel region's 7th coup in recent years. The people of Niger remain divided over the military takeover. There are those that stand behind President Bazoum, Niger's first ever democratically elected president, who came to power 2 years ago and is seen as one of the most pro-Western leaders in the Sahel, notably in the fight against Islamist insurgents. And then there are those in support of the coup, voicing discontent against France's interference in Niger's affairs, where, similar to events in neighboring Burkina Faso in September last year following a coup, protesters on the street were seen stomping on and burning French flags. These protesters also shouted support for Russian leader Vladimir Putin. These events coincided with a 2-day Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg, during which the Russian president promised the shipment of free grain to 6 African nations as he searches for allies and support against Western sanctions. International organizations are monitoring the situation, with concerns growing that Niger will be added to a growing list of military regimes in West Africa. Ian Jin, Arirang News.
Prime Minister Xavier Bettel from Luxembourg was here in Seoul last week to mark the 70th anniversary of the Korean Armistice Agreement. Now, that being said, my colleague Cho Min-jung took the occasion to engage him in a short talk about his country's ties with South Korea. Do have a listen.
To commemorate the 70th anniversary of the Korean War Armistice Agreement last week, Luxembourg's leader Xavier Bettel visited South Korea together with a 93-year-old Korean War veteran, Leong Moyen. Speaking to Arirang News, Bettel said the anniversary was so important that he, as the head of his country's government, felt the need to come.
So for us it's important, that's the reason why I came myself, also that the Prime Minister was important for myself to be here, and also with a veteran, shows the importance for my country.
7 decades ago, Luxembourg was a country with a population of only around 200,000 people. Despite its small size, the country decided to send 100 combat troops to South Korea, the largest number of troops in terms of ratio to population among countries that fought in the Korean War. The Prime Minister explained that it was a soldier's choice to fight for freedom and democracy.
It was a free choice of young guys, and when I spoke to Mr. Moyen, he told me that it was just a short time after Luxembourg was attacked by the Germans, so he decided to to defend, even if it was far away, also democratic values. So that's the reason why he decided to come. It was his choice, but I respect it, and we Luxembourg supported it.
The leader also said the Korean War had never been spoken about in his country as much as it was last week, thanks to his and the veterans' presence at South Korea's commemoration events.
So that's what is good to keep in mind, and not to forget. We have to learn from every conflict, because we always say history has not to repeat, and we see that history is repeating all the time.
And since the war, the Prime Minister said relations between South Korea and Luxembourg have been good and will be developed further.
But we will open an embassy now in Seoul. Maybe Korea will open an embassy in Luxembourg too. That would be next step.
He also looks forward to potential visits to Luxembourg by South Korea's president and veterans minister in the future.
I think this is important because the survivors of the Korean War, 5 are not able to travel, but they would be very happy and moved to see that even if they are not able to travel, they are not forgotten.
Luxembourg's leader stressed that the Korean War has proved South Korea and his country are trusted partners, and that even distance doesn't determine the size of friendship. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
COVID-19 cases have been rebounding in recent days here in Korea in what appears to be a summer surge sparked by waning immunity and public activity. Our Moon Hae-ryun reports.
COVID-19 is showing a resurgence here in South Korea, with the number of cases rising for 4 weeks straight, which could throw a wrench in the government's plans to lower its risk rating. According to data released by the Central Disease Control Headquarters on Sunday, cases rose by more than 35% during the third week of July compared to the week before. Figures for July have shown significant increases week by week, rising from just over 150,000 in the first week to the latest figure of 253,000, meaning that the number of cases has seen a more than 60% rise over 3 weeks. Daily figures are hovering near the 50,000 mark, hitting over 47,000 on July 19th. It's the highest daily tally seen in the country since November last year, when daily figures peaked above 54,000. Experts are saying that the resurgence has been prompted by a number of different factors prompted by the weather, such as more people out and about, less ventilation in buildings with windows tightly shut to keep in the cool air-conditioned air, and fewer people wearing masks due to the heat. The current dominant subvariant of the virus in circulation is XBB 1.5, which was described by the World Health Organization as having an increased risk of transmission and moderate strength of evidence for immune escape. While the vaccine against this new strain is set to be made available in South Korea in October, the low vaccine rates seen last winter among those aged 60 and over, which came to some 34.5%, means that this may not be so effective for herd immunity. The latest data comes as the government announced last Wednesday its plans to lower COVID-19's risk rating on the infectious diseases risk classification scale. Currently, it's ranked Class 2, which is the second highest rating alongside other highly infectious and high-risk diseases like cholera and tuberculosis. The government plans to lower it to the lowest rating at Class 4 as part of the second step in the 3-step endemic roadmap unveiled earlier this year. Being downgraded to Class 4 means that people will no longer have to report to the authorities within 24 hours of testing positive, and the indoor mask mandate at hospitals and nursing homes will be lifted. The Korea Center for Disease Control and Prevention will be monitoring the recent data and holding an advisory committee meeting before it implements the decision early in August. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
In other news, Korea's tax revenue shrank by some $2.5 billion on year last month. According to Seoul's finance ministry on this Monday, June's tax revenue amounted to some $14.5 billion or 18.4 trillion won as revenue from capital gains tax declined. Tax revenue during the first half of this year amounted to roughly $140 billion, down $31 billion on year, the highest on record. Meanwhile, the total tax revenue thus far this year covers just 44.6% of the annual budget, the lowest since data was first compiled back in the year 2000. The ruling People Power Party and the government have vowed to crack down on the piracy of Korean-made cultural content, including music, movies and dramas. After hearing from industry insiders on this Monday, ruling party lawmakers and government officials pledge legislative efforts for punitive measures against illegal streaming, as well as a reward system for related reports. The two sides also spoke of joint efforts with relevant authorities in different countries, including the US, to bolster a global response against piracy and of launching campaigns to encourage respect for copyrighted content. Engineers from Korea and their counterparts in India are working to put in place a convention center in India that paves the path to broader economic initiatives between the two countries and more. Our Lee Kyung-eun explains.
This is a building in its final stages of construction in Dwarka, a satellite city of New Delhi in India. A smart city project driven by the government of India, this is the India International Convention and Expo Center with a total indoor area of 300,000 square meters, that is roughly 40 soccer fields. Upon its completion, the IICC will have 5 large exhibition halls, a multi-purpose convention center holding the largest auditorium in India with a capacity for 6,000 people, as well as multi-purpose arena facilities to hold 20,000 people.
We have completed more than 90% of physical work, and it is expected that by end of August are done already. So now presently we are doing the testing and commissioning of equipment.
Not previously having had an appropriate facility for exhibitions and conventions, India is making full efforts for the successful construction of the IICC. Now what stands key to the success is the Korea International Exhibition Center, commonly known as KINTEX, the convention exhibition center located in Ilsan in Goyang City, Gyeonggi-do Province. 5 years ago, when the Indian government set out to look for an operator, it chose KINTEX as its operating partner with a 20-year contract. After its completion, India will have the 4th largest exhibition and convention facility in all of Asia.
We are planning a Korea Expo in India for July of next year, which would be a platform for Korean companies in the bio, IT and architecture industries, as well as other K-Wave products, to launch in India.
Once K-exhibition and K-convention get into full swing in India, small and medium-sized companies in Korea are expected to very quickly dive into the Southwestern Asia market. The India International Convention and Expo Center is set to complete construction and have its official opening in October of this year. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
China's soft power diplomacy includes some of its cutest ambassadors. In fact, South Korea is home to one of them, and my colleague Song Yu-jin had the pleasure of a meeting, or a seeing to be precise, to take a look.
Black eyes and ears surrounded by a white coat of fur. Fubao, the giant panda, has captured the hearts of people in Korea. It's a regular weekday morning, but minutes after Everland opens its gates, it's packed with people.
When I watch videos of Fubao, she's absolutely adorable and charming.
I feel a deeper affection for her because she's the first panda ever to be born in Korea.
This year, the craze around this 3-year-old panda reached new heights when her zookeeper revealed in May that she'll have to move to China next year. After the news, the average number of daily visitors to Everland during the last week of May rose 20% when compared to the first week. For Fubao's zookeeper tryout program, more than 13,000 people applied for 3 available spots. But why does Fubao have to go to China? That's because all pandas and their offspring legally belong to Beijing. China has been long using pandas as a diplomatic tool.
Panda diplomacy began in 1972 when then Chinese President Mao Zedong gifted 2 pandas to the U.S. after President Nixon's visit to Beijing. Their cuteness sparked a worldwide demand, promoting China to loan pandas to other countries as a way to foster friendly relations.
Current Chinese President Xi Jinping sent Fubao's parents, Aibao and Lebao, to Korea in 2016 when bilateral ties were relatively stable. With the recent strain in relations, some wonder whether Fubao could come to the rescue. China's ambassador to Korea, Xing Haiming, visited Everland and presented a thank you plaque on Fubao's 3rd birthday. This was after his previous controversial remarks about China's rivalry with the U.S., which seemingly targeted the Korean government.
Koreans' affection towards pandas can positively influence their perception of China. Everland's panda videos are going viral on Chinese social media platforms. This could lead to new civilian exchanges and public diplomacy programs, ultimately influencing political and diplomatic relations too.
With negotiations for Fubao's return set to start next month, all eyes are on what decision will be made and how that'll affect Seoul-Beijing ties. 송유진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Pakistan, at least 44 people have been killed and over 100 wounded in a suicide bombing. The blast took place on Sunday at a political rally in the town of Khar, near the Afghan border. There, over 400 supporters of the Jamiat Ulema Islam Party had gathered for a party convention in the lead-up to elections slated for later this year. Authorities say the bomber detonated the explosives close to the rally stage, near the party's senior leaders. So far, no responsibility for the attack has been claimed, but Islamic State is suspected, as it operates in the bordering Afghanistan and has accused the party of being hypocritical for supporting hostile governments. Last year, IS claimed responsibility for attacks against the party's religious scholars. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that war is returning to Russia. Speaking on Sunday, the leader said it was a, quote, inevitable, natural and absolutely fair process of the conflict. His comments come after an announcement by the Russian Defense Ministry on the same day that it had thwarted an attack by 3 drones. The ministry claimed 1 drone was destroyed in the air and the remaining 2 were electronically suppressed and crashed into office buildings. Before that, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that he was not opposed to peace talks with Ukraine after being presented with an initiative from African leaders at a summit in St. Petersburg. But Putin added that ceasefire is virtually impossible when Ukraine is on the offensive. 3-time slackline world champion Jan Roos has set a record in Qatar for the world's longest LED slackline walk. Called the Sparkline Challenge, the 31-year-old Estonian walked over 150 meters on a 2.5-centimeter wide LED highline. The line was suspended over 185 meters high across Lusail City's crescent-shaped Katara Towers building. Roos used his time on the line to also perform a variety of tricks, including balancing upside down and lying on his back. And finally, over 150 dogs raced through the Venezuelan capital of Caracas on Sunday to drum up support for animal shelters in the country. Called the Dog Running Race, the second edition of the event saw dogs wearing colorful scarves around their necks cover a distance of 4 kilometers alongside their owners. Economic difficulties in Venezuela, including annual inflation of about 400%, have made basic pet care difficult, leading many to abandon their pets and increasing the burden on shelters. The event charged runners $30 to participate, with proceeds going to pets waiting to be adopted. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. The intense heat is still down in Korea with a heat wave warning in place across the peninsula. Afternoon highs are hovering around 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon in most parts. And it comes as no surprise that the number of heat-related illness patients soars during a searing heat wave. The least we could do is to drink plenty of water and close the curtains or blinds if you have windows that face the sun's direction in the morning through afternoon. Well, there was a heavy passing rain Sunday evening, heavy enough for rain alerts to be issued in Seoul and parts of Gyeonggi-do province. And for today, we are expecting another round of passing showers with up to 80 millimeters. Heat should linger even at night. In fact, massive heat waves are being reported across the world. Some areas seeing highs nearing 45 degrees Celsius. Well, can't imagine what they're going through. And it is the hottest time of the year in Korea as well. This week looks to stay hot, so please take well care. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions. Well, those are the headlines at this hour. We have our panel session coming up right after this break, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? I'm live.
저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 없지. 텐션 같은데 이런 거 아무도 안 하는 거고.
좋아요.
Hello, I'm Gustav Slamečka, Czech ambassador. Arirang TV is doing its best as a media diplomacy channel representing Korea by delivering current affairs information and news in a balanced voice. Everyone I meet can get news about Korea through Arirang, and we are thankful. I hope Arirang TV will continue to take the lead in delivering Korea's news to the world, and I hope it will be a channel for the world and Korea to synthesize. Resonating with the world, Arirang.
feel so good right now. Maybe I had a drink or two, but this somehow feels like it's forever. All my friends are here having fun and feeling good right now. Maybe this is forever. All my friends are here having fun and feeling good right now. Forever.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
BTS member Jungkook scores his first solo hit with 7, which debuted at the top of the Billboard Hot 100, making him the second solo BTS member to hit #1 on the pop chart after Jimin with his solo Like Crazy. So what are pundits saying about this latest feat? What have been the implications of Solo Projects on BTS's hiatus as a group? And what other K-pop acts are making headlines? Welcome to Issues and Insiders. We start the work week with the latest in the world of K-pop across the globe. For more on this, I have Kim Youngdae live on the line. Youngdae, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Long time no see. Hi.
Hello, hello. And I also have Haley Yang with us. Yeah, Haley, it's good to have you with us again.
Good to be back after a while.
Right, Youngdae. BTS member Jungkook made an impressive Billboard debut, if I may say so myself, with his solo single 7, topping 3 major charts at the same time, I hear. Could you tell us a bit more about these charts and what are the implications of this latest feat for K-pop as a whole?
Like you mentioned, Jungkook, the golden maknae, right, of BTS, made impressive, but not so much surprising hotshot debut at #1 on Billboard Hot 100, which is obviously the most popular, relevant, and representative chart of all. And he also took multiple #1s on the relatively newest charts, such as Global 200 and Global 200 excluding the US. All 3 charts are pretty important and very relevant indicators of which songs are currently received the most, sold and streamed the most, and I mean, to put it simply, the most popular. Especially the 100 in particular, it can be said the most legitimate, standard and traditional indicator that would tell us the mainstream popularity of American pop music right now. So overall, I mean, these chart success proves once again BTS dominance in the US pop market continues. Not only as a group, we all seen a lot of series of #1 hits, but right now as an individual artist such as Jungkook and Jimin, this momentum is expected to continue for the time being.
Right, and that being said, Haley, what do you believe is the appeal of Jungkook's single 7?
I don't know how many of our viewers have listened to this song, but they could probably notice that it sounds very modern, almost like anything that's trending in the Western market, especially with English lyrics. It could really blend in with other Billboard chart-topping hits. And a lot of people probably know that there are distinct song structures and melodies often found in K-pop, and a lot of those types are broken away from in Jungkook's debut. And also, a lot of people must have been talking about this, but what's been mentioned a lot around K-pop listeners were how explicit the lyrics were, which is a major breakaway yet again from normal K-pop as we know it. it because of considering how K-pop idols normally try to avoid any explicit content at any cost. So the very explicit nature of Jungkook's lyrics were bound to cause word of mouth, and usually that always helps publicity. That gets people talking about it and actually checking out if it's as shocking as they've heard it is. And it has been generating a lot of buzz about how unconventional it is, causing more people to enjoy the song, give it a listen, and bring it high on the charts.
Right, I see. Milo Youngdae, I hear that Jungkook's latest success comes amid a change in charting methods by Billboard. Could you tell us a bit more?
By the way, for me, both versions are relatively clean for me. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Anyway, Billboard, they always change the way the charts are counted or the the percentage details of the formula they made that creates this chart results. The reason for this is not always known, but can only guessed. But I understand it is to more, accurately reflect the music's current popularity, of course. Recently, Billboard announced that it would not reflect the number of downloads directly on the artist's official website for its chart, which is, kind of disadvantaged given the characteristic nature of K-pop and fandom, which achieves, they would achieve the chart results with high fandom participation in the purchase and downloading. But the important thing is, despite all this, Jungkook took #1 spot, multiple #1 spot. Once again, this time it was very narrow gap, quite interesting situation. But anyway, it is very meaningful achievement for Jungkook and BTS, of course, and K-pop in general.
Right. Haley, a number of BTS members now have shared solo projects, and their fan base, of course, has been very quick to embrace these projects. What have been the implications, do you suppose, of these solo projects on BTS's hiatus as a group?
So before they officially announced their hiatus as a group, which was already a year ago, June 2022, before that, for years, there was concern about whether their management company, HYBE, could even survive without BTS, or if BTS would manage to be not forgotten during their military-induced hiatus. And of course, a lot of that concern was gone away with the hit groups that HYBE has been launching afterwards. But BTS members themselves have been really breaking expectations with their solo endeavors that turned out to be enough to generate a lot of profit even on their own, because think about it, the members releasing their albums are reaching million seller statuses on their own, which arguably is more profitable per capita because they're reaching around the same heights that they've been reaching a septet. And with big news about BTS continuing to follow in, like TV appearances, Billboard records, and sales of their music, BTS remains relevant even more so than ever in the public mind without any group activity. And even without them as a group together, there has been a lot of talks in the media which will ensure that they are not forgotten until they're return from their military hiatus.
Right, of course not. Youngdae, what are your thoughts on the impact of these solo projects by BTS members on their fans as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I mean, it is not always true for US or British pop group, but for K-pop groups, especially the group like BTS, you will definitely will see a great impact of certain group, I mean, as a group. But if you look at closely, it's a sum of a lot of different fandoms, individual fandoms of each different members. And at this point, I mean, BTS, 10 years, right? And they've shown a lot of different things as a group. But right now, everyone knows that it is a perfect time for every members as an individual artist to show their true, authentic artistry for the fans. And it's very timely. So I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of different things to be shown as a group later in the future. But at this time, it is time for solo projects. I think it's a perfect timing. And also these solo projects is successfully showing their very unique individuality as a solo artist.
Right. Haley, BTS's book Beyond the Story debuted on top of the New York Times bestseller list to become the first book by a Korean author to hit #1 on that list. How do you explain this popularity?
fans definitely paid for the high-quality hardcover version, which also contains interviews about BTS members' lives as trainees leading up to their debut. But there's also probably a bigger reason behind a book reaching #1 on the list by a Korean K-pop band, right? First of all, if you think about it, BTS's ARMY are known for their formidable purchasing power. They buy up to 3 million copies of BTS's albums every time they release one. And ever since June of last year, if you notice, there has been no album from BTS because of their official announcement of a group hiatus. So ARMY needs some place to spend their money and channel their passion into. And it's the same as how CD sales have been skyrocketing since the pandemic started. When social distancing was at its peak, K-pop fans couldn't spend their money on concerts or meet and greets, anything, in person. So they decided to channel a lot of their funds for supporting their stars into bulk buying their CDs because they couldn't spend it on anything else. And I believe that a lot of the solo projects, the gov't, and even this book that BTS or BTS related stuff are being released, the fans are deciding to show their support by purchasing their usual, CD money on these merchandises. This time, I think the book was a very great form of BTS's appeal to be released in the market when the fans are really thirsty for more content.
Right, indeed. And beyond BTS, Hayley, on a more solemn note, K-pop girl group 50/50 behind the hit song Cupid and its agency are embroiled in a legal dispute as we speak, I believe. Now, as a pundit observing the events from the outside, what are your thoughts regarding this legal battle?
I've been following this incident, as many people have been in the industry, since it broke out really shockingly in late June. And it's actually nothing new for K-pop idols to sue their agencies to break away from them. But what's really noticeable during this incident is how Koreans usually have supported the stars, as we've seen in the case of TVXQ's lawsuit with SM Entertainment in 2009, or Luna with their agency this year earlier. But why the Korean public is reacting really differently and very skeptically to 50/50. I believe there are many underlying that rather than just this narrative that's going on that they're ungrateful, that they're traitors to their original agency. For those of you who don't know, 50/50 is trying to break away from their agency, citing that it missed payment details and forcing them to perform while they were sick. And all of this happened to happen after their song Cupid became a viral hit this spring. And the agency says that the members are trying to break away at the first sign of publicity because they're being poached by bigger outside forces that they're accusing. And the thing is, I believe the story resonates with a lot of the Korean public and causes them to really condemn them very harshly because it violates a lot of the traditional elements seen in wholesome Korean feel-good stories. So the CEO of their agency sacrificed his life savings to invest in these 4 members, and the narrative currently is that the members are ungrateful, failing to repay this pseudo-parental figure sacrifice, and that's the agency's chief in this case. So I do feel for both sides, the girls trying to look for bigger opportunities or seek payment, and also the agency that really put in a lot in raising them. But I think the members are seeing really harsher backlash, not because that what they've done is necessarily so immoral, but because they go against a lot of these traditional elements that Koreans have been rooting for,
Right, and against that backdrop, Youngdae, on a deeper level, what does this dispute tell us about the tasks that need to be tackled within the broader music industry here?
Well, as Hayley mentioned in detail, this time it was different. I mean, the public's reaction to this issue was pretty different from the case of Luna, and even TVXQ back in the day. The difference is real. I mean, it's pretty obvious. 50/50, they never had an ample time to build the substantial amount of fandom to trust them, have a proper respect for the artists. So this time, well, like Hayley mentioned, there are a lot of different reasons. But personally, I don't see this as something that would reveal the sort of fundamental problem in the K-pop music industry. Rather, for me, it is close to very kind of special case, very specific case. But basically, I think it was a kind of unfortunate and inappropriate judgment by the givers and the producer An Sung-il. I'm not really talking about the details or any like real conflict between two agencies here, but for me, what worked out in the favor of this group? We say we all know that 50-50 is sort of like a small, medium-sized company's miracle, right? So we were all hoping that this miracle would continue, and in order to do so, they really needed to put down their own situation, to think about the continued success of the group. Maybe I'm being too romantic or naive, but I'm really sorry for them.
Right. Youngdae spoke about miracles, Hayley. Now, earlier this month, moving forward, that is, New Jeans became the fastest K-pop group in history to enter the Hot 100. Could you tell us a bit more about this group's accomplishments, which come about a year since its debut?
They made a truly sensational debut in August 2022, and everyone in Korea has probably heard of Hype Boy unless they live in a cave, and maybe even if they live in a cave, they probably listen to Hype Boy. And there's actually so many first and high points that this group has achieved in less than a year, which it just surpassed its first anniversary. So just to give you some of the top accomplishments they've seen, the group has already won multiple advertisement deals that are all over TV, so everyone has seen their face, from fashion deals, luxury endorsements to Coca-Cola advertisement, which groups usually take years, if ever, to win these high-profile advertisement deals. It also won the New Artist Award and the Grand Award at the same time last year, meaning that it really reached the top upon its entrance into the K-pop scene. And it's the third group ever after 2NE1 and Blackpink, both legendary names, for its debut song to also top the daily and monthly charts. Also recording some more is highest CD sales, physical copies by a debuting girl group, most streamed female K-pop act on Spotify. And it's just become a cultural phenomenon overall, not just among the very young fans who would traditionally, support these really young girl groups, but also you'll notice that they have a very sturdy fandom among the people in their 20s and 30s.
And Youngdae, speaking as a music critic, of course, what is your thoughts on the appeal of this particular girl group, New Jeans?
By the way, I'm pretty sure Hayley, did one of the Hype Boy cover dance back in the day. I don't know. Yeah, but New Jeans music, for me as a music critic, extremely simple. Very surprising. It is very simple, yet extremely refined and sophisticated at the same time. It may sound easy, but that's not really easy at all. This is such a quiet and a high level, kind of like a music, expertise. It's very difficult to achieve. In the past, K-pop has been thinking a lot about what K-pop should be, sounding like or look like. That's why nowadays we have a, aesthetic called K-pop style, right? And it worked. I cannot deny. But New Jeans doesn't seem really to feel that kind of compulsion. You know what I mean? They do not utilize complex arrangement or complex, music or the word views or the lore and stories uniquely, applied to K-pop. Their music is such a simple and exceptionally beautiful and delightful, suitable all kind of occasions and lifestyles of many different people, and satisfying any casual taste for contemporary pop music fans. I think that's a really important distinction. It is music for everyone, still K-pop aesthetic in a lot of different ways, but it's not just for K-pop fans. It's really a kind of cosmopolitan music created by Korean people.
Right, a simple universal appeal then. Youngdae, another K-pop girl group, LE SSERAFIM, teamed up with Japanese singer-songwriter for a new single, I hear. What can we expect?
Oh, it's very interesting collaboration because Imase is the probably only one or one of very few singers to have a substantial hit on the Korean local chart like Melon. So it itself is a huge news. The song will be featured on their second single for the Japanese market from LE SSERAFIM titled Unforgiven, released on August 23rd. We all know they're a very talented multinational girl group with two very popular Japanese members, Sakura and Kazuha. So for that reason alone, they have a wonderful response, better response and reputation in the J-pop market than any other K-pop girl groups. So to put it simply, another big hit will be expected. according to the press release that I read, it will be, I don't know, maybe kind of cliched expression, but a retro funky groove kind of song in the city pop style. So I don't know really about that, what that means, but to put it simply, for me, it's going to be very exciting, modern and retro at the same time, popular music.
Right. Hayley, what would you say are the broader gains of artistic collaborations in the music industry, keeping in mind, of course, Le Sserafim's team up with Imase?
I believe the current trends show a transition in the K-pop scene where once there was a time that K-pop groups usually tried to avoid featuring other artists on their lead tracks because I believe, one, they feared that it might take away the focus on promoting their own members, and also K-pop groups already have so many of their own members already, so they felt kind of a lesser need to feature big artists, and that is no longer the case as seen in Le Sserafim. Collaboration, especially with artists from a different country, can obviously cross-promote between countries, like between Japan and Korea in this case, and also because Imase is not just a Japanese J-pop artist, but also very popular on TikTok. That's what really made his career. It can help Le Sserafim reach his TikTok following and a bigger audience. And also vice versa, Imase could reach the fans of Le Sserafim in Korea and abroad that wasn't necessarily familiar with J-pop or its artists. We really see this trend recently. Le Sserafim also collaborated with American producer and guitarist Nile Rodgers in May for Unforgiven, which was their lead track, and that also created buzz and garnered in people who knew about Nile Rodgers but weren't necessarily interested in Le Sserafim. And I do expect this trend to rise.
Right. And I think we have like a minute or two left. So moving forward then, Hayley, which K-pop boy band, apart from BTS, of course, are making waves on music charts as we speak?
Boy bands traditionally tend to have a harder time gaining popular appeal among the general public because they usually opt for harder, eccentric sounds to focus on their really loyal fan base. And the exceptions, very few of them, with recent releases are boy bands 17 and NCT Dream, which have topped the charts, each with Super. And for NCT Dream, it's been Candy and ISTJ, which just dropped 2 weeks ago. In the case of 17, they've been building up a very sturdy fan base since they debuted in 2015 and going strong for 8 years. And NCT Dream has been opting for softer, more publicly appealing sounds in recent years. For example, their hit Candy is a remake of the 90s hit by HOT, which has wider appeal. So whether they've built a stronger fan base or are going more public appeal approach, some boy bands have been making exceptions.
Right, and speaking about boy bands, Youngdae, I believe there is an all-Filipino K-pop boy band making news. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, the name is Horizon, a 7-member boy group from the Korean-Philippines joint project idol, survival program Dreammaker, which last aired on Philippine broadcasting station ABS last February, I guess. They're not quite unfamiliar to us because the idea, right? For one thing, K-pop groups are already huge in the Philippines, and SB19, P-pop group, inspired and influenced by the K-pop idol system, has already become an internationally popular group following K-pop's path to global success. So, and also K-pop's unique, trainee system, has already penetrated deeply in the Philippine music industry and kind of localized in their own way. So, groups for the K-pop markets are now being, created in earnest, which also means we are close to the final stage of Korean localization. K-pop system is happening. It will take a while for them to gain a popularity of Korean local groups in Korea. But I think it will make very meaningful results in the end.
Right. Hopefully you're right, Youngdae. As always, Youngdae, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today. And Hayley, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Right. Well, that ends Monday's edition of Issues and Insiders. We return same time tomorrow. That is Tuesday, so join us then.